Guys, and welcome back to another episode of Federico Talks Watches. Today, I'm doing another Q&A, where you guys ask me some questions on Instagram, and I try and answer a few of them here, be it watches or personal, a whole bunch of stuff. And actually, quick wristwatch check, today was a busy day at the office, still kind of moving stuff around, so I'm wearing the Seiko SKX beater. Not only is it a rough and tumble watch, and I don't really care if it gets beat up because it's inexpensive, but I genuinely enjoy it. And also, before we get started, guys, I just put a hot deal section on my website, Delray Watch Supply. That's delraywatch.com. Go take a look. There's about nine watches that are, in my opinion, pretty good deals that I lowered the price on, and maybe one of you guys can grab a steal. And also, I just got in a couple of different Speedmasters as well. So, guys, go check it out. Personally, my pick of the lot, that Peter Speakmarin, man. I really want one. It's actually, I've owned two since I've opened Delray Watch, and it's one of my favorite watches because it's unique. It's got a great techno time movement, 120-hour power reserve, and at the same time, you don't see them every day. And you guys know that's something I like, the uniqueness of it all. But anyway, let's get right into the Q&A. And if you see me looking over here, I'm just reading the questions you guys asked. I'm not trying to be rude. But let's get started. Kindred Spirit, who I actually recognize the name because he's asked a lot of questions before, says, "What's my favorite Quartz watch?" Well, Kindred, my favorite is definitely the Breitling Aerospace. Titanium, light, very, very rough and tumble, very durable. And it's Ani-Digi, which is very cool. You can have a chronograph, 2 time zones, a light to see in the dark. It's a genuinely well-made quartz watch, and one I really, really like. Not to mention the prices are pretty damn low. A Mac Gibb says, "What will be the new trend to explode in the watch world this year?" Well, buddy, if I knew that, I'd be a very rich man. The latest trends have been blue dials and obviously vintage reissues. And those are still going strong. But I think the new trend is probably going to be gray dials. I've seen them trickle out lately. People seem to love their gray dials. And also, I'm starting to think the dress watch is making a comeback. But that might just be wishful thinking. We're out of the big watch phase, but dress watches still aren't there yet. And I think this year may be a good year for a renaissance. Swiss Watch Blogger asks, "What is your opinion on futuristic watches of MBMF or work and height?" Well, Mr. Swiss Watch Blogger, they're technically super impressive. They really, really are, and I think they help push the watch industry forward, especially in research and development. But all you guys know that I do appreciate a good movement, but I'm mainly aesthetically driven, and I have to be honest. MB&F or work and height, all their watches I personally find hideous. MB&F probably being my favorite of them. So I wouldn't personally own them, but as a watch lover, you gotta think they're super cool just for what they're starting to create. Preferably, I'm a big fan of Automata. But, I don't know if I'd wear any of these watches, but they are certainly very impressive. Alec Sibley says, "If you could only keep 2 watches that you already own for the rest of your life, what 2 watches can be?" Now, that is really tough. Dude, that's almost not fair. I'm going to go with my limited edition vintage Apollo 14 Speedmaster, and then I'd probably go with the IWC Vintage Collection Engineer, but that puts me in a little bit of a pickle because, the Speedy with its Hesselite, and they're both on straps, I don't really have a tough everyday watch. If I can have 3, listen, and one that I already own, I'd probably shove the SKX in there. It just gets the job done, and I know a lot of people are going to hate on me because they give it so much love, but hey man, it's the truth. Addis Kutsulis says, "How often do you service your watches, if at all?" This is another question that's going to get me a lot of shit. How often do I service my watches? Not very often at all. I wait until I noticeably see them losing time. And that is not very easy for me because I switch out my watches almost every day. In my entire 10-year or 8.5 year career, I've only gotten one of my personal watches serviced. No, two of my personal watches serviced. I'm not really huge on accuracy just because I switch them out every day. So 10, 12 seconds a day doesn't bother me. Losing power reserve also doesn't bother me tremendously. And I have a watchmaker on staff, so I can kind of get it done whenever I want. But honestly, I just kind of wait until it needs it. It's just the way I roll. Road and wrist. This is Jesse Martin from Hoboken Watch, a fellow dealer and a good friend of mine. How can I sell more watches? It's a good question, man. I wish I knew the answer to that question. I mean, if we all had a glowing personality like me, maybe you'd sell a few more watches, Jesse. I don't know. No, but in all honesty, the answer to this question is it's all about customer service. And Jesse knows this really well. But to answer this to, somebody else that might be interested, it's all about follow-up, providing fantastic service to the point where you get recommended word of mouth to other people. And of course, the internet marketing helps. But honestly, if you're good at what you do, people will want to do business with you. Panarocraft. Where are you born in Italy? Where are your parents from? Well, I'm from Napoli, the south of Italy, and my entire family is actually from Napoli. I think only one of my great-grandparents was Greek, but genealogically, we're all pretty much from Naples in the south of Italy. However, I did grow up in New York and Madrid, and I am a U.S. citizen as well as an Italian citizen. KW Harlan, what did you think of the Zenith 146 you just sold? This is the Zenith El Primero with the blue dial 38 millimeters. I think it is a stunning watch with great retro looks and a blue dial. My problem is it's 38 millimeters, so I don't think I could pull it off. I prefer the 42 millimeter Zeniths, but this one was a real beauty. In fact, it sold just like that. Horologium 77. Hey Fed, with a large and expensive collection, do you find yourself getting paranoid about leaving pieces in your apartment? What do you think about watch insurance? This is something else where I don't recommend taking my advice. I'm not very careful. I've never really been too worried about my watches. I mean, of course, I lock my door. My building has a doorman and a concierge, so nothing really is going to happen. However, I should have my collection insured. I just don't. I guess I'm just an easygoing guy. I mean, obviously, the watches for my business are insured, and I know a lot of people insure their personal collections, and I should probably do mine as well, but I just don't. I'm generally not very worried. I travel with my watches all the time. Watches are scattered kind of all over my desk, so I'm not too careful with them, but it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. So if you guys do want to know about watch insurance, look up Chubb, Chubb. I hear they're the best. Nikita NY. Hey Federico, since you're now a watch dealer, are there any specific ethical rules you follow? Under what circumstances would you say no, even though the offered price is very tempting? This is a tough one. I haven't really been faced with this too much, but we have to talk about ethics and legality. So the first thing is legality. So if someone offers to sell me a watch, for a very inexpensive price, say a Rolex Submariner, they walk in, I inspect it, and there's no serial number on it, I won't buy it. Or if they can't provide me with ID, I won't buy it. Or if for some reason I think it is even remotely stolen, I won't buy it. Not only is that morally and ethically, but also legally, because I can get into a lot of trouble for that. But morally, listen, let's not lie to ourselves. I'm in this to make a profit. So if I can get a good deal, I'll get a good deal. However, I also don't believe in taking advantage of people. Like, for example, if, I don't know, let's make up a scenario. A little old woman walks into the office and says, I just found this in a drawer, and I don't know what it is. will you give me $200 for it? And she hands me a red sub. Of course, I won't do that. I won't sleep at night. I'll tell her what I think it's worth, and I'll try and get the best deal I can. However, if somebody walks in and it's a fair deal, or it's even lower than a fair deal, and they are a full mind, mind and body, so to speak, and they just didn't do their research, I don't mean to sound rude, but that's just not my problem. As long as it's legal, and as long as I can sleep at night, not knowing that I haven't taken advantage of anybody in a particularly bad situation, those are kind of the two compasses I go by. And I think that's pretty fair, but I'm interested to see what you guys say. Let me know. And then Jorge Rizek 191 says, do you think if you had the opportunity, would I have a datograph in platinum or a 5170 Patek? So a Lange datograph or Patek 5170. You know what? Datograph all the way. Philippe Dufour said it himself. It is the best luxurious chronograph ever made, and that's where I'm going to end it. Guys, thank you so much for watching another Q&A episode. I do these about once a month, so go follow me on Instagram. That's at Delray Watch Supply and at Federico Talks Watches, so you can be informed next time I do a Q&A, and maybe you can participate. Also, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It really does help. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any content. Guys, thank you so much for sticking with another video of Federico Talks Watches, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.